Am I the a-hole for secretly selling the company my co-founder and I built together after he stole half our clients and started a rival business? I never thought I'd watch the startup I poured my heart into crumble because of my best friend, let alone feel justified in taking drastic, backdoor measures to save it. But here we are. I'm a 28F software engineer and co-founder of Greenleaf Analytics, a small data visualization tool for sustainable agriculture businesses. 2 years ago, I left my comfortable corporate gig, maxed out my credit cards, and convinced Elliot, 29 Mess, my roommate since college and amazing UX designer, to join me. We sketched wireframes on my kitchen table, pitched to local accelerators, and spent nights at hackathons, dreaming we'd help farmers track water usage and get paid while doing good in the world. For the first year, everything clicked. Elliot handled the front end, I built the back end, and together we landed 5 small pilot clients. Local vineyards, community farms, and a couple of environmental nonprofits. We split equity 50-50, raised a tiny 50K friends and family round, and I thought we were unstoppable. We moved into a 2-room office above a coffee shop, hired 2 interns, and I felt that electric thrill you get when something you build finds its first users. Then Elliot's behavior changed. He started coming home late, often meeting with investors, he said, but he refused to let me sit in on key calls. He grew secretive with the CRM. When I asked for access to client dashboards, he claimed the data was sensitive and only he could handle it. He tweaked our contract templates without telling me, adding exclusivity clauses that locked clients into 6-month commitments. I chalked it up to scaling paranoia. 6 months ago, I noticed half our clients had vanished. Emails bounced, calls went unanswered, and our recurring revenue dropped off a cliff. My code still worked, but there was nobody left to use it. Meanwhile, I started seeing ads on social media for a new and improved version of our own product, rebranded as AgriLeaf. Insights, with nearly identical features and copy that looked suspiciously like my own interface designs. The About page boasted Elliot as sole founder. My heart sank. I called Elliot into the office. He patted me on the back and said, "Hey, don't worry. Think of this as a strategic spin-off. AgriLeaf is a side project for larger, paying clients. Greenleaf remains our community edition, free for small farms. But when I checked the bank accounts, Greenleaf had 0 revenue and negative balance. AgriLeaf had tens of thousands in ARR, and Elliot's personal account had spike shots of 5K deposits. He'd quietly convinced half our clients to switch contracts over to him, pitching AgriLeaf as the enterprise solution, then pocketed the difference. He insisted I stay on as a consultant, with competitive hourly rates. But I discovered he was billing me to work on my own codebase under his new company. I was furious, but also terrified. Elliot controlled the corporate bank account, the incorporation papers, and the client relationships. Legally, Greenleaf dwindled to nothing. Without our flagship users, if I challenged him, I'd be homeless, bankrupt, and without the company, I'd risked everything to build. But I also couldn't let him walk away with my life's work, so I did the only thing I thought I had left in me. I quietly spun off a shell entity and bought the Greenleaf trademark and domain from our registrar at cost. It had lapsed because Elliot hadn't paid renewal fees. I republished the original Greenleaf Analytics product under my new company, RootTech Labs, reached out to our departed clients, and offered them a seamless transition back to the bona fide tool, with a 2-month free trial plus an open source pledge. Many of them jumped at the chance. Within weeks, I recouped about 70% of our prior revenue, and RootTech's social media buzzed with thank you messages. We're back home. Elliot could never replicate your code quality. RootTech for life. Elliot discovered what I'd done when one of our mutual clients forwarded him a congratulatory email from me. He stormed into my apartment, accused me of corporate espionage, and threatened to sue me for trademark infringement, breach of confidence, and more. I calmly pointed out that he had abandoned Greenleaf, let its trademark lapse, and that his own actions, misappropriating assets, misleading clients, and reincorporating under a deceptively similar name, made any lawsuit he filed laughable. I offered to split RootTech's profits 30-70 in my favor, on the condition he join as a bona fide partner, pay me back the misdirected agri-leaf revenue, and sign a non-compete. He laughed and called me a backstabbing snake. Word got out among our friends in the incubator. Some cheered me on, "You saved your baby," while others hissed, "You went too far. You're the one who stole the trademark. You should have just sued him, not played corporate pirate." People I thought I could trust warned me I'd burn bridges and that no decent lawyer would back you. Investors I pitched to reacted coolly when I mentioned the story. "Sounds messy. We don't like drama." I've spent countless nights justifying my choices. I took extreme measures to prevent Elliot from cashing out on my sweat equity. I resurrected the tool for the farmers who counted on it. I didn't lobby any clients by force. I simply offered them a better, transparent agreement. But the harder I try to maintain RootTech's legitimacy, the more I feel like the villain in Elliot's revenge posts across LinkedIn. Beware the co-founder from hell. She stole my trademark, my clients, and left me in the dust. My old mentor, Professor Choi, texted, "There are two sides to every story. Be careful who you trust." And I admit, there are nights when I question, did I cross an ethical line? Should I have confronted him, sued him, or found some equitable arbitration? Or was the prospect of losing everything enough to justify my own hostile takeover? So Reddit, am I the a-hole for secretly reviving our product under a new company and locking out my co-founder after he betrayed me and stole half our clients and assets? Am I the a-hole for locking my sister out of our grandmother's antique shop and keeping the auction proceeds after she secretly sold half our inheritance? I never thought I'd turn into the kind of person who counts family betrayals like price tags, but here we are. I'm a 32-year-old collector and restorer of vintage furniture, and for as long as I can remember my grandmother's little shop, Marigold Antiques was our shared legacy. Grandma left it to me and my younger sister, Renee, 29F, equally in her will, the building, the inventory, and the right to split any future sales. I poured my heart into restoring dusty mahogany armoires, polishing tarnished silver, and researching every provenance tag so we could host occasional themed auctions to draw collectors to our tiny Midwestern town. Renee, on the other hand, lived in the city 3 hours away and worked in marketing. She visited sporadically, rarely rolling up her sleeves, but promised to handle social media promotion and bookkeeping when she could. I trusted her. She'd always been the more outgoing sibling, the one who charmed cousins and cousins' friends alike, and I figured her contacts could only help the business grow. That trust unraveled last spring. Grandma had left us a trove of rare, high-value items, a pair of 18th century French ormolu candlesticks, a collection of first-edition wartime letters, and an inlaid Art Deco writing desk. We decided to hold a spring auction and split the profits. I spent 2 months cataloguing each piece, photographing with natural light, writing detailed descriptions, arranging shipping quotes for international bidders. Renee was supposed to handle online ads and local press releases. When I followed up a week before the auction, she brushed me off, saying she was swamped with a new campaign for her firm. I offered to take on more of the marketing, but she insisted she'd get to it. The night before the auction, she texted, "Sorry, I couldn't finish the promos, but the bidders list is ready in the Google Doc." I opened it and saw only a handful of contacts. No press, no social media outreach. My heart sank, but I chalked it up to miscommunication. The auction itself was modest but decent. The silver sold for a fraction of market value, the letters fetched more than I expected, and the desk went to a buyer in Germany for a good sum. We made roughly $35,000 after fees and commissions, which we agreed to split evenly. I transferred her half immediately, and used my share to invest in new display cases and restore an oak roll-top desk for summer consignment. Renee deposited her funds, texting, "Thanks for handling the heavy lifting. Let's catch up soon." I was relieved. Weeks later, I received an email from one of our longest-standing bidders, a collector in Boston, asking how he could purchase the candlesticks I'd listed for auction. Confused, I checked the auction records. The candlesticks had never gone under the hammer. They were still in Grandma's original display case in back storage. My chest tightened. Then I noticed the empty pedestals. I confronted Renee via phone. She stammered that she'd taken the candlesticks to a private show in the city, just for a quick sale, and had sold them to an anonymous dealer for $50,000. She claimed she'd wired my half, but that bank issues prevented the transfer. When I demanded proof, she blocked me. My calls bounced, her social profiles vanished. I felt like I'd been pickpocketed by my own flesh and blood. Panicked, I changed the locks on the shop and had a locksmith rekey the safe. I notified the local police, providing the sale documents I'd uncovered showing the candlesticks changed. Hands in New York City, far above market rate. The dealer was reluctant to return them but admitted the sale violated our joint ownership. My lawyer sent a demand letter, and eventually the dealer agreed to relinquish them, minus a hefty fee, to cover their purchase and shipping. I covered that from the auction proceeds, then relisted the candlesticks online and sold them in a curated gallery show for $75,000, splitting the funds into two separate escrow accounts, one for me and one for Renee. Next, I posted a letter on the shop door. Dear customers, due to unforeseen family circumstances, the shop is temporarily closed until further notice. We apologize for any inconvenience. I also updated our website to remove Renee's name and redirected mail and correspondence exclusively to me. When Renee finally responded, via a lawyer's email demanding her half of everything, including the restored oak desk and future auction rights, I refused. I argued that by selling one of our key assets without my consent, she breached our partnership and forfeited her claim to any proceeds from that piece. She countered that I'd profited off her initiative and had hijacked our grandmother's legacy. Community reaction split. Some neighbors said I was protecting Grandma's treasures and commended me for acting decisively. Others whispered that I was raping our shared inheritance and cutting off family for a $50,000 windfall. Renee started tagging me in angry social posts with hashtags like sister thief and our shop scandal, dragging our grandmother's name through the mud. Our mutual friends tried to mediate, but Renee refused to meet. Even my own partner told me I seemed cold and unforgiving, suggesting I should simply split the money and move on. The shop has been closed for 2 months now, dust gathering on the window display, but I haven't felt safe reopening until the ownership dispute is settled. I've offered to split everything else, the oak desk, future auction inventory, any new purchases, down the middle. I've even tried to set up a mediation, but Renee won't show. She insists I send her a cashier's check for $75,000, covering both her half of the original candlestick sale and an equitable share of all future income. That would effectively mortgage the shop's future. If I pay, I'll lose the ability to invest in new inventory and the business I built with my hands and sweat. I know it sounds harsh, but I feel I have no choice. Renee gambled with our inheritance, and I've rectified it in the only way I can, by securing the assets and offering to share fair proceeds on everything else. She sold family property behind my back, and now she wants to wipe the slate clean as if nothing happened. My fear is that if I relent, she'll be emboldened to strip more assets and expect me to cover her mistakes. So here I stand, torn between honoring Grandma's legacy and cutting out the sister I once trusted more than anyone. I sleep with the shop's keys beside me, worrying Renee might try to break in. I've had to install cameras and hire extra security for the night auctions I'm planning. Friends say I'm justified, but family says I've sold out my own sister. I feel guilty and exhausted. Reddit, am I the a-hole for locking my sister out of our grandmother's antique shop and withholding her share of the auction proceeds after she secretly sold half our inheritance? Am I the a-hole for refusing to lend my childhood best friend $15,000 for her IVF after she abandoned me when I was hospitalized? I never expected my friendship with Becca to end over money, but here we are. I'm a 31F, and Becca and I have been inseparable since kindergarten, practically sisters. We shared clothes, secrets, bad boyfriends, and our most humiliating middle school moments. In college, we lived together, cheered each other through bad breakups, and collaborated on our dream of opening a little bakery one day. After graduation, life splintered us geographically. She moved to Chicago for a marketing job. I stayed in our hometown to care for my aging grandmother, but we still called each other every week. 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with an aggressive autoimmune disease. The flare-ups hit me without warning. Joint agony, fevers so high I hallucinated. and eventually I landed in the ICU for a week when my organs began to shut down. I had no family nearby. My grandma was frail, and my parents live out of state, so Becca flew down the day I went in. She held my hand as I drifted in and out of sedation, wiped my tears when I couldn't stop shaking, and camped at my bedside for days, refusing to leave until I was stable. She texted all our friends, organized meal trains, even negotiated with the hospital's social worker to speed up my insurance appeals. I came home from that stay battered and broke, out of work for 6 weeks, racking up $40,000 in medical bills, but I felt buoyed by her loyalty. I promised myself I'd repay her kindness forever. Fast forward to now. Becca has been married 3 years and wants a baby. They've tried naturally for over a year, nothing. Her doctor recommended IVF, but with travel and medications it'll cost roughly $25,000. Her husband's salary covers their rent and groceries, but he can't save enough for the full procedure without dipping into their retirement, which Becca refuses to do. She called me last month, voice trembling, begging for help. "I know it's a lot," she said, "but you know how much I did for you. I get you've got health bills, but I'm your best friend. Can you float me 15 grand? I'll pay you back in monthly installments, I promise." I paused before answering, heart pounding. In the 2 years since my hospitalization, I've managed my disease but still struggle. I work part-time now, saving for my own emergency fund in case I relapse. I have $8,000 left over after bills, enough to cover rent and food for 6 months, but nowhere near her target. She asked again, "What if it's just 10 grand? I've got the rest." I told her truthfully I simply couldn't afford it, that I'd maxed out 2 personal loans already to cover my medical care and car repairs. She grew quiet, then said, "I don't understand. You said I'd owe you everything." I reminded her I promised emotional support, in sickness and in health, not a bailout when I'm financially unstable myself. Becca's reaction cracked something in me. She accused me of being selfish and ungrateful, pointedly reminding me that if I'd died in that hospital bed, she'd have lost her only real friend. I countered that I nearly died, and she cared for me not because of legal obligation, but out of love, and that I'd expected reciprocity in more ways than just a bank transfer. She snapped that I was holding a grudge for something that happened 2 years ago, and that real friends step up. Then she slammed the phone down. Since that call, she's stopped returning texts and ignored my calls. She's posted on social media about her stone-cold so-called bestie blocking her dreams, tagged mutual friends asking who's Team Becca, and even messaged my grandmother asking if I was okay, clearly fishing for dirt. Our friends have split. Some think I'm right to protect my finances. Others say I owe her for saving my life. I feel firm in my decision. If our roles were reversed, she'd understand that money I don't have can't be loaned. But I also feel haunted by guilt. My disease taught me gratitude, and part of me wonders if I really should have found a way to help her, even if it meant more loans or stretching myself thin again. So here's where I stand. Becca gave everything for me when I was at my most vulnerable, and I can't give her the same when she's vulnerable. I've offered to help research grants, accompany her to appointments, and even hosted fundraisers, but she insists only cash will do. My bank account is my lifeline against another medical crisis. If I drain it, I risk ending up back in that ICU bed with no one to advocate for me. I'm torn between being a loyal friend and being financially responsible for my own survival. Am I the a-hole for refusing to lend my best friend $15,000 for her IVF after she devoted days of her life to care for me in the hospital? Am I the a-hole for cutting off my professor after she sabotaged my scholarship and then demanded I work for her without pay? I never thought I'd end up resenting the person who taught me how to think, but here we are. I'm a 24F finishing. My master's in environmental science, and Dr. Caldwell, 55F, has been both my thesis advisor and mentor for the past 2 years. When I started the program, she was renowned for her groundbreaking research on wetland restoration and her fierce advocacy for marginalized communities affected by flooding. I was thrilled to join her lab. Her lectures were electrifying. She encouraged collaborative fieldwork, and she seemed genuinely invested in helping students land jobs and grants. I worked my tail off. I spent entire weekends in the marshes, collecting water samples. I coded late into the night to analyze sediment data, and I drafted posters and papers whenever she had deadlines. She lauded me as the brain of the group, and often said I had a promising career ahead. Last fall, the university announced a prestigious fellowship open to one graduate student in each department, covering full tuition plus a 6-month stipend to conduct independent research anywhere in the world. The application deadline was December 1st, and the award would be announced in late January, just before graduation. Dr. Caldwell called me into her office 2 weeks before the deadline and said, "This is your moment. I want you to apply. Use my recommendation, my letters, everything. You deserve it." I was ecstatic. She gave me 3 glowing paragraphs to paste into my personal statement template, offered to proofread drafts, and even arranged for me to co-author a related paper to strengthen my CV. I turned in the application on time, confident. On January 25th, the fellowship committee emailed me, "We regret to inform you." My heart dropped. I immediately scheduled a meeting with Dr. Caldwell. She glanced at the rejection note, then said, "Oh, that unusual. I'm surprised. I did hear back from them, but they said you weren't quite collaborative enough. They phrased it as prefers independent projects." I blinked. "They told me I scored highest in teamwork and community impact." She shrugged and changed the subject. "Well, you win some, you lose some. You've still got a bright future." I left her office, confused. 2 weeks later, I bumped into another student, Jasmine, in the hallway. She whispered, "I got that same fellowship." My blood ran cold. "But they offered only 1 per department," I said. "Yes, but Dr. Caldwell emailed me personally, forwarded my award letter, and said they'd decided to nominate me instead of you because our field needs more minority voices." I felt bile rising in my throat. That afternoon, I confronted Dr. Caldwell in the faculty lounge. I said, "You told me I was the nominee. Jasmine got the fellowship." She looked annoyed. "I changed the nomination. Your research is valuable, but you lack the lived experience needed for this particular grant's goals. Jasmine's background aligns better." I stammered, "You promised to support me." She waved her hand. "These decisions aren't personal. But I asked you months ago to help edit my own grant proposal. You never had time." I clenched my fists. She had weaponized diversity politics to override her own endorsement, and then blamed me for not volunteering to proofread her latest NSF application. I took the department chair aside, explained what happened, and provided email evidence of her commitment to me and her last-minute switch. The chair said it was unfortunate, but hard to overturn external nomination decisions. No apology was made. Fast forward to graduation week. Dr. Caldwell tracked me down at the ceremony rehearsal. "Since you're graduating, I'd like you to work as a research assistant on my next project, mapping coastal erosion in the Gulf for the summer. Unpaid, but I'll write you a stellar reference." I paused. I had arranged a paid position with an environmental non-profit starting in June, one I'd lined up based on my own merit, not her favor. I said, "Thank you, but I already committed to a paid role." She glared and said, "Don't burn bridges. You owe me for all I've taught you." I replied, "I appreciate your mentorship, but I don't owe you free labor." She leaned in, voice low. "You'll regret this decision. Academia is small." Her words felt like a threat. After graduation, references from Dr. Caldwell alluded vaguely to my mixed teamwork capabilities and potential for growth, costing me 2 interviews I was otherwise qualified for. I reached out to Jasmine, who confessed, "I did get that fellowship, but it fizzled. Dr. Caldwell used my report samples in her grant and never paid me for the extra work. She praised me to the committee, but then changed her mind about funding me too. We realized we were both victims of the same manipulative pattern. I haven't responded to her emails since graduation, thanking her or asking for advice. My peers say I should forgive and move on, but I can't shake the betrayal. She built me up to win my trust, then tore it down to serve her own publication record, pushed me out of opportunities, and then demanded uncompensated work under duress. I cut off contact entirely. No reply to her messages or holiday cards. It's awkward when our mutual mentors bring up my absence in alumni events, but I can't pretend I respect someone who wielded her power to derail my career. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole for cutting off my thesis advisor after she sabotaged my scholarship nomination and then pressured me to work for her without pay? Am I the a-hole for refusing to host my partner's entire extended family for Christmas after they treated me like a servant last year? I never imagined I'd be writing one of these posts about Christmas of all things, but here we are. I'm a 33-year-old woman, and I've been with my boyfriend, Mark, 34M, for 4 years. He's great, supportive, funny, thoughtful, but his family, that's a different story. His parents divorced when he was young, and since then he's been bounced between grandparent houses, a couple of aunts and uncles, and most recently, his sister's place. The holidays have always been a patchwork for him, and until last Christmas I tried to help make it feel special. Last year we agreed to host Christmas at my apartment in the city so that Mark could finally feel at home, and because he'd just started a promising new job with a startup, I wanted to surprise him with a big celebration. I spent the 3 weeks before December cooking, cleaning and decorating. Hand-stitched felt stockings hung over my mantel, homemade cinnamon orange garlands draped on the banister, a 9-foot tree in the corner adorned with family heirlooms and store-bought baubles. I planned a full menu: poached pear and spinach salad, prime rib with red wine juice, honey-glazed carrots, herbed potatoes, a Yule log cake, Christmas cookies shaped like stars and snowflakes. I sent invites to Mark's parents, his sister Jenna, and her husband, his cousin group chat, and even his great-aunt Maud, who he insists is sensational if a bit eccentric. I figured 30 guests at most, which seemed manageable in my 100 to 200 square foot place. What I didn't plan for was the onslaught of requests and demands once everyone arrived. The week before, Jenna texted me a 17-point list titled Logistics and Preferences that read like a corporate memo: dietary restrictions, seating charts, floral arrangements, Santa visit for the kids, 5 of them under age 8, and a request for adult beverages in a wide array of options. I spent hours at specialty stores, hunting down gluten-free crackers, dairy-free cheeses, artisanal sodas, and fancy bitters for cocktails. I rearranged my living room to squeeze in folding chairs, rented an outdoor heater for the balcony so smokers could congregate without freezing, and even borrowed folding tables from my neighbor. On the morning of the 24th, I woke up at 5 a.m. to begin brining the meat and pre-baking pies. I welcomed guests at noon with a tray of hot mulled wine, but within minutes things went sideways. Mark's Aunt Lorraine pointed out that the cinnamon sticks floating in the cider clashed with her strict anti-spice cleanse, so I had to brew a second batch of plain apple cider. Great-aunt Maud demanded a change of seating because the sun's glare on the east-facing window hurt her eyes of a 93-year-old, so I relocated her and 2 chairs, which blocked the buffet line. Cousin Taylor spilled a glass of red wine on my cream-colored rug and insisted we just let it be part of the ambiance, then complained that I didn't have enough cocktail napkins. The kids raced past my tree-knocking ornaments off. One toddler ripped down my hand-knit garland, and when I calmly escorted the kids' parents to clean up, they said, "Relax, it's Christmas." My breaking point came when I was in the kitchen, trying to sear the prime rib, and felt someone stuffing a plate with appetizers to take home, then saw Jenna's husband hoard nearly a dozen stuffed mushrooms in his jacket pocket. I confronted him and he snapped, "Hey, I'm a guest, I'll do what I want." That was it. I had spent 2 days cooking and weeks planning, and these people treated my home like an all-you-can-eat buffet with no regard for my effort. I collapsed onto the kitchen floor and cried. Mark found me there and tried to calm me, but Jenna stormed in demanding to know why dinner was late. I explained, voice shaking, that guests had been rude, spilled things, and disrespected my home. Jenna rolled her eyes, said I was dramatic, and told Mark, maybe next time his place is a better fit. Mark looked at me, disappointed, and went back into the dining room without a word. I spent the rest of Christmas Day quietly in my bedroom, listening to laughter and toasts echo through the walls. When dinner was finally served 2 hours late, Aunt Lorraine complained the meat was too gamey. Cousin Taylor said the potatoes were under-seasoned. Someone criticized my cookies for being too fancy for kids, and Great Aunt Maud demanded I clear the dinner plates myself because servants do it better. Mark tried to help in the kitchen, but the guest pressure became too much. Voices telling him to stop babysitting and let me handle it. I ended up doing all the cleanup alone at midnight while they watched holiday movies in the living room. When everyone left on Boxing Day, I was emotionally and physically exhausted. My apartment was a wreck, and I hadn't even had a slice of cake. Mark apologized for not stepping up more, but also suggested that maybe they were just overwhelmed. It's the holidays, people get cranky. I told him that hosting was supposed to be a shared effort, not a one-sided ordeal, and that I felt used. He said, "You did this for me," and I snapped, "No, I did this for them too, and they trashed my place." We argued for days. He said I was too sensitive, and I said he was complicit by not shutting his family down. This year I made the executive decision, we will not host Christmas. We'll do a quiet day at home with just the two of us, maybe a video call, with his mom. Mark is livid, says I'm denying his family tradition and being selfish. His sister called to complain about not getting invites like last year, and his mom cried that I broke Christmas spirit. Mark's begun dropping hints that I'm an inconsiderate partner, and friends have messaged me saying, "That family does love you. You're overreacting." I feel both relieved at the thought of not cleaning toilets at 5 in the morning and guilty for abandoning Mark's family when he hardly has a holiday to call his own. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for refusing to host my partner's entire extended family for Christmas after they treated me like a servant last year? Am I the a-hole for cutting out my childhood best friend after she used my traumatic past against me at her baby shower? I never thought I'd be writing something this long, but here we are. I'm a 32F, and I've known Sarah, 33F, since we were 6 years old, inseparable through grade school, high school, and even our respective first marriages, though both of us divorced in our late 20s. We shared everything. Clothes, secrets, boyfriends, only once, and it was under mutual friendly arrangement rules so it never got messy. And most importantly, the grief of losing our parents within 6 months of each other when we were 20. Sarah's mom died from cancer. Mine was killed in a car accident. We leaned on each other like lifelines, and in college we moved into a little 2-bedroom apartment together, surviving on ramen noodles and part-time barista wages. We promised back then that nothing would ever come between us. Fast forward to present day. Sarah's engaged to a wonderful man, Tom, 34M, who dotes on her, has the sweetest toddler, Emma, 2F, from a previous relationship, and is thrilled that he and Sarah are expecting a baby together. I, meanwhile, am unmarried, childless by choice, and deeply invested in my career as a forensic accountant. Long hours, high stress, but it pays the bills, and mentally I find the work oddly cathartic. Sarah's wedding was last summer, and I was honored to be her maid of honor, gave a speech no one has stopped talking about, and cried more happy tears than I thought possible. 2 weeks ago, Sarah invited me to her co-ed baby shower at a country club. The invitation was lovely, ribs and wings, cornhole mocktails, so I rearranged a client meeting and drove 3 hours to be there. When I arrived, everyone was smiles and hugs. I felt surrounded by old friends from college, plus some new faces. Sarah's co-workers, Tom's family, the toddler's godparents. We played a few games, guess the baby food, diaper relay. It was all light and fun until after lunch when Sarah asked to say a few words and directed me to the front of the room. I thought she was going to thank me for being there, but instead she launched into a recounting of her rocky journey toward motherhood, sleepless nights with Emma, miscarriages, fertility treatments, IVF, all of which she spoke about with raw vulnerability. I felt tears pricking my eyes as she described how hard it was to carry a child at 33. Then she paused and said, "And throughout all of that, my biggest supporter was my oldest, dearest friend, my name. When I had my first miscarriage, she flew down to hold me. When I faced the decision to start IVF, she helped me fill out all the forms, reminded me of appointments, and even lent me a chunk of her savings when the insurance refused to cover my costs. My throat tightened as she continued. She's been with me through every heartbreak, every victory, never asked for anything in return. So, everyone, let's raise a glass to the real MVP, the woman who made this baby shower possible, my best friend, my name. My jaw dropped. The room applauded politely, and I forced a grin as I mouthed thank you. But something about the way Sarah spotlighted me, that she made me the emotional centerpiece of her shower, felt off. I knew she'd leaned on me a lot during her fertility struggles, but it was always private between us. I'd given her money because she asked and I could afford it. I'd taken time off work to sit through scans and hormone injections because I cared. But I never realized how much of my own emotional labor I'd poured into her life at the cost of something no one else ever knew, my own trauma. Because here's the thing. Sarah knows better than almost anyone that I have CPTSD from our parents' deaths. I've never fully healed. I still have panic attacks when I hear metal screeching on asphalt, nightmares about ambulances, and sometimes I can't sleep for days. I've never talked about this in depth with anyone but my therapist, let alone a room full of people I met in college. And yet, by telling the story of how I held her up through her miscarriages, she implicitly revealed my darkest hours for all to see. In the stunned silence, I realized I was dying inside. I never consented to have my private suffering broadcast at someone else's party. I managed to choke out, "Thank you," lifted my glass, and took a sip, but inside I was shaking. After the formal part ended, people crowded around me saying, "You're amazing. What a true friend, and your story brought me to tears." I felt nauseous. I wandered outside to get fresh air and found Tom, who gave me a reassuring hug. But when I tried to whisper, "I'm upset she said all that," he looked confused and said, "She was only praising you. Why is that bad?" I couldn't explain why it felt like a violation. I just said, "I need a minute," and went back inside. Later, I told Sarah I wanted to talk privately. She smiled and said, "I'm so glad you're here." I started by saying, "I appreciate what you said today, but I also feel like you exposed me in front of everyone. My grief isn't a party favor." Her expression shifted. Shock, hurt, defensiveness. She said, "I was only thanking you. You knew about all this. You told me your story the day after my first miscarriage. You cried into my shoulder for hours." I replied, "Yes, in private. You never asked if I was okay with you sharing it publicly." She scoffed. "It's not like I told them you murdered someone. It was a sweet tribute." I said, "My trauma isn't a sweet tribute." She rolled her eyes. "You're being dramatic. Everyone loved it." I said, "That's not the point." Her face hardened. "After everything I've done for you, you're upset about one harmless speech. You're ungrateful." I felt the room tilt. All around us, people were watching. Sarah turned away and walked off. I paced outside for another hour, then gathered my things and left. No goodbyes, no hugs. Driving home, I texted her, "I can't be part of your life if my feelings aren't respected. I'll reach out when I'm ready." She fired back, "Fine, enjoy your pity party. Don't bother coming to the birth, I won't ask again." I didn't respond. It's now been 10 days. Neither of us has reached out. Mutual friends are whispering, "They were always inseparable. This is so sad." Maybe you both should make the first move, but she only meant to honor you. I feel both relieved and spectrally lonely, like a phantom at the edge of my own life. I still love Sarah, but I can't shake the sense that she trampled a boundary I never set, publicizing my grief for applause. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for cutting out my childhood best friend after she used my traumatic past against me at her baby shower? Am I the a-hole for refusing to forgive my best friend after he stole my dream job opportunity and then demanded I help him move cross-country? I know. That's a lot to unpack, but bear with me, Reddit, because this one's going to hurt. I'm a 29F and I've been friends with Evan, the 30M, since college. We met freshman year in a philosophy lecture, bonded over our mutual disdain for mandatory group projects, and practically grew up together through late-night study sessions, road trips, and each other's family holidays. We've always said we'd ride or die for one another. Last year, I spent the better part of 9 months interviewing for my dream position as an editorial assistant at a small but prestigious publishing house in New York City. I've always been passionate about books. I tutor writing on the side, I run a tiny book review blog, and I even self-published a novella that got some local press. So when I finally scored an interview, I prepared like my career depended on it, because it did. I nailed the phone screen in January, tackled the writing assessment in February, and flew to NYC for the final round in early March. Evan was thrilled. For me. He even video called me from his Airbnb in Austin so I could practice my answers one more time. He was my cheerleader. Fast forward 2 weeks. I get an email from the publishing house offering me the job. I cried tears of joy on the subway. I called my family, my blog followers, every person who had ever given me feedback, and of course Evan. He went absolutely ballistic. He threw a "the camera will add 10 pounds"-esque tantrum saying, "You're not going to waste your life in New York. Come to Austin with me." I reminded him that A, this was my dream, B, I had a signed lease in Brooklyn, and C, I had just spent every penny I had flying back and forth. He backed down, publicly anyway, and promised to visit me in the city soon. A month later, I unpacked, immersed myself in training, and realized this was exactly where I was meant to be. I started pitching story ideas, networking, and even shadowing the senior editor on a big book acquisition. I felt like I was finally on the path I'd dreamed of since I wrote my first fan fiction in high school. Then, out of nowhere, Evan calls me, voice shaky, asking if I'd mind if he applied for an assistant position that had just opened at the same publishing house. I hesitated. It had only been open 3 days, and I'd been interviewing elsewhere as well, but I told him fine. But just know their culture is intense, and I only got in after 3 rounds. It might not be easy. He thanked me. I told him good luck, and mentally crossed my fingers. 2 weeks go by. It's been a whirlwind. I'm editing a manuscript on my laptop during lunch breaks and juggling a freelance gig on the side. One afternoon, I'm in a conference room when my manager pulls me into her office. She's mortified. Apparently Evan, who I assumed was months out, had applied, been fast-tracked through interviews, and just accepted the very same role I'd worked so hard to land. The kicker. I was supposed to train him next week. My manager said, "He came in wearing that stupid band tee you introduced him to, said your last name. And suddenly everyone remembered you vouching for him. We figured he'd be a great cultural fit." She apologized profusely, but said since he interviewed so well, they couldn't back out now without it looking like nepotism. I remember pacing our cramped shared office, heart pounding. I felt 2 things: betrayal and humiliation. I messaged, "Evan, you stole my job," he shot back. "I didn't steal shit. You told me about the opening. You didn't put up any notices. If you didn't want competition, don't let people know." My blood boiled. He was 0% sympathetic. Then he followed up with, "Also, I'm moving next month. Can you help me pack your U-Haul or whatever?" It felt like a punch in the gut. I refused. I said, "No, I will not help. My schedule is booked." He texted non-stop for 3 days. "Team on, man, bro code. I thought you'd have my back. This is harsh." And then finally resorted to guilt trips. "I wouldn't do this to you if I wasn't in a bind. Do you even value our friendship?" My boss, meanwhile, started dropping hints. "Evan mentions you fondly. We hope you two will collaborate." And I felt pressure to act like nothing was wrong. But every time I saw Evan in the hallway, I couldn't pretend. I was just excited to train my rival. I went from every weekend hangouts to reading his texts with cold dread. This month, his move day rolled around. He messaged at 6 a.m. "Hey, I'm loading the truck now. Guess you're not coming." I'd already told him I was tied up with a big proof deadline. He posted on Instagram a photo of him crying in front of an almost empty apartment and tagged me. Then he posted another. "Big life chapters require sacrifice, heartbreak, loss. Maybe someone I thought was my best friend will finally show up." It got hundreds of likes. Our mutual friends DM'd me, "Are you okay?" I felt cornered. So I posted, "Sorry everyone, but people reap what they sow. Some lessons cost more than we think." It was petty, but I snapped, "Now I'm the villain." Evan has told everyone I ghosted him and trashed him online. I'm getting cold shoulder. At brunch meetups, people I thought I could count on say, "It's just business, why are you so upset?" My boss sighed when she saw me, asked if everything was all right, and I had to lie. I keep replaying everything. I introduced him to this world. I gave him insider tips. Yes, he acted opportunistically, but I can't deny I was the one who showed him the door. Some nights I lie awake, wondering if I overreacted, if I should have just trained him and moved on. Then I see him sitting at my desk, his nameplate already on the door, and I feel that old pain. So here I am. Reddit. Am I the asshole for refusing? To forgive my so-called best friend, for cutting him out when he moved into the very job I labored to earn, and for refusing to help him unpack knowing full well I set this all in motion? Am I the a-hole for refusing to forgive my best friend after he stole my dream job opportunity and then demanded I help him move cross-country? I know. That's a lot to unpack, but bear with me, Reddit, because this one's going to hurt. I'm a 29F and I've been friends with Evan, 30M, since college. We met freshman year in a philosophy lecture, bonded over our mutual disdain for mandatory group projects, and practically grew up together through late-night study sessions, road trips, and each other's family holidays. We've always said we'd ride or die for one another. Last year I spent the better part of 9 months interviewing for my dream position as an editorial assistant at a small but prestigious publishing house in New York City. I've always been passionate about books. I tutor writing on the side, I run a tiny book review blog, and I even self-published a novella that got some local press. So when I finally scored an interview, I prepared like my career depended on it, because it did. I nailed the phone screen in January, tackled the writing assessment in February, and flew to NYC for the final round in early March. Evan was thrilled for me. He even video called me from his Airbnb in Austin so I could practice my answers one more time. He was my cheerleader. Fast forward 2 weeks, I get an email from the publishing house offering me the job. I cried tears of joy on the subway. I called my family, my blog followers, every person who had ever given me feedback, and of course Evan. He went absolutely ballistic. He threw a "the camera will add 10 pounds"-esque tantrum saying, "You're not going to waste your life in New York. Come to Austin with me." I reminded him that A, this was my dream, B, I had a signed lease in Brooklyn, and C, I had just spent every penny I had flying back and forth. He backed down, publicly anyway, and promised to visit me in the city soon. A month later I unpacked, immersed myself in training, and realized this was exactly where I was meant to be. I started pitching story ideas, networking, and even shadowing the senior editor on a big book acquisition. I felt like I was finally on the path I'd dreamed of since I wrote my first fan fiction in high school. Then, out of nowhere, Evan calls me, voice shaky, asking if I'd mind if he applied for an assistant position that had just opened at the same publishing house. I hesitated. It had only been open 3 days, and I'd been interviewing elsewhere as well. But I told him fine, but just know their culture is intense, and I only got in after 3 rounds. It might not be easy. He thanked me. I told him good luck, and mentally crossed my fingers. 2 weeks go by. It's been a whirlwind. I'm editing a manuscript on my laptop during lunch breaks and juggling a freelance gig on the side. One afternoon, I'm in a conference room when my manager pulls me into her office. She's mortified. Apparently Evan, who I assumed was months out, had applied, been fast-tracked through interviews, and just accepted the very same role I'd worked so hard to land. The kicker: I was supposed to train him next week. My manager said, "He came in wearing that stupid band tee you introduced him to, said your last name, and suddenly everyone remembered you vouching for him. We figured he'd be a great cultural fit." She apologized profusely, but said since he interviewed so well they couldn't back out now without it looking like nepotism. I remember pacing our cramped shared office, heart pounding. I felt 2 things, betrayal and humiliation. I messaged, "Evan, you stole my job." He shot back, "I didn't steal shit. You told me about the opening. You didn't put up any notices. If you didn't want competition, don't let people know." My blood boiled. He was 0% sympathetic. Then he followed up with, "Also, I'm moving next month. Can you help me pack your U-Haul or whatever?" It felt like a punch in the gut. I refused. I said, "No, I will not help. My schedule is booked." He texted non-stop for 3 days. "Simon man bro code. I thought you'd have my back. This is harsh." And then finally resorted to guilt trips. "I wouldn't do this to you if I wasn't in a bind. Do you even value our friendship?" My boss, meanwhile, started dropping hints. "Evan mentions you fondly. We hope you two will collaborate." And I felt pressure to act like nothing was wrong. But every time I saw Evan in the hallway, I couldn't pretend. I was just excited to train my rival. I went from every weekend hangouts to reading his texts with cold dread. This month, his move day rolled around. He messaged at 6 a.m. "Hey, I'm loading the truck now. Guess you're not coming." I'd already told him I was tied up with a big proof deadline. He posted on Instagram a photo of him crying in front of an almost empty apartment and tagged me. Then he posted another. "Big life chapters require sacrifice, heartbreak, loss. Maybe someone I thought was my best friend will finally show up." It got hundreds of likes. Our mutual friends DM'd me, "Are you okay?" I felt cornered. So I posted, "Sorry everyone, but people reap what they sow. Some lessons cost more than we think." It was petty, but I snapped. Now I'm the villain. Evan has told everyone I ghosted him and trashed him online. I'm getting cold shoulder. At brunch meetups, people I thought I could count on say, "It's just business, why are you so upset?" My boss sighed when she saw me, asked if everything was all right, and I had to lie. I keep replaying everything. I introduced him to this world. I gave him insider tips. Yes, he acted opportunistically, but I can't deny I was the one who showed him the door. Some nights I lie awake wondering if I overreacted, if I should have just trained him and moved on. Then I see him sitting at my desk, his nameplate already on the door, and I feel that old pain. So here I am. Reddit. Am I the asshole for refusing to forgive my so-called best friend, for cutting him out when he moved into the very job I labored to earn, and for refusing to help him unpack knowing full well I set this all in motion? Am I the a-hole for telling my sister I won't attend her wedding because of what she did to my husband 5 years ago? This one is going to be long and painful to write. Please bear with me. I'm a 34F, and I've been married to my husband Nate, 36M, for 9 years. He's my rock, my best friend, and the kindest man I've ever known. We met in college, dated for 5 years, and have built a quiet but fulfilling life together. We don't have kids yet, but we've been trying for a while. My sister Lily, 31F, and I were always close growing up. She was the golden child, beautiful, charismatic, and always the center of attention, but I didn't resent her for it. She had a light in her that drew people in, and I often felt invisible next to her. But I loved her fiercely. She was my baby sister. Even when she stole my clothes, lied to our parents to get out of trouble, or flirted with my boyfriends in high school, I forgave everything because, well, that's Lily. The real trouble started 5 years ago. At the time, I had just gotten a big promotion and was traveling a lot for work. Nate was finishing his master's degree and working part-time at a local non-profit. During one of my longer work trips, Lily stayed at our house for a few days. She said her apartment had plumbing issues, and Nate, being the generous person he is, said she could crash with us. I didn't think much of it. She and Nate had always had a civil, even friendly relationship. I trusted both of them completely. I was gone for 5 days. When I got back, something felt off. Nate seemed more withdrawn than usual. Lily left abruptly the morning I returned, claiming she had a job interview. I didn't press it. A few weeks later, Nate confessed something to me that changed everything. He told me Lily tried to kiss him. She came into our bedroom late at night, drunk, wearing only one of his t-shirts, and tried to climb into bed with him. He said she told him I didn't deserve him, that I was always gone and didn't appreciate how good he was. He pushed her away and told her to leave immediately. He didn't tell me sooner because he was afraid I wouldn't believe him or that it would ruin our family. I was in shock. I confronted Lily immediately, and she denied everything. She said Nate had misinterpreted things, that she had been drunk and emotional, and maybe overstepped but never tried to seduce him. I asked her point blank if she had tried to kiss my husband, and she just said, I don't remember it like that. Not a no, not an apology, nothing. That moment destroyed something in me. I went low contact with her after that. I didn't tell my parents what happened because I knew they'd take her side and I didn't want to blow up the entire family. For years, I avoided family holidays unless I knew she wouldn't be there. I didn't invite her to my birthday parties, blocked her on Instagram, and I grieved the loss of the sister I thought I had. She made a few half-assed attempts to reconcile, sending me vague messages like, I miss you or can we talk, but never once apologizing or even acknowledging what happened. I ignored them all. Fast forward to 3 months ago. Lily gets engaged to her boyfriend of 2 years, Josh. My mom calls me crying, saying Lily wants me to be her maid of honor. I almost laughed. I told my mom there was no way in hell I would be in the same room as her, let alone stand beside her at a wedding. Mom said I was being dramatic, that family is family, and I needed to let go of whatever grudge I was holding. I finally told her what Lily had done, every disgusting detail. She went silent. Then she said, I'm sure it was a misunderstanding. That hurt more than I expected. My own mother choosing to excuse her behavior. I told her I wasn't coming to the wedding, not as a guest, not at all. Cue the family backlash. Lily sent me a long email filled with half apologies like, I was in a dark place and I never meant to hurt you, but again, never truly admitting what she did. She begged me to come, said she needed her big sister there, said she wanted to start fresh. I responded with a simple, no, actions have consequences. Now I'm being painted as the villain. My dad called me and said I was breaking Lily's heart and punishing her forever for a mistake. My aunt texted me that life is too short to hold grudges. Even my older cousin, who I thought had my back, said, you're going to regret this when she's gone. Here's where it gets even messier. A week ago, Josh, the fiancé, emailed me. He found out the real reason I won't attend the wedding and wanted to hear it from me. I debated not responding, but I felt like he deserved to know who he was marrying, so I told him everything. He didn't reply. 3 days later, the wedding was postponed, due to personal reasons. Lily went nuclear. She left me a screaming voicemail calling me a liar, a jealous bitch, and said I had ruined her life. Our mum called again, sobbing, saying, Lily is inconsolable, and that if the wedding is called off for good, it's on me. I don't feel guilty, not even a little, but the weight of being the bad guy in my family has been suffocating. They've always coddled Lily, always enabled her, and I'm just done playing along with that narrative. Nate supports me 100%. He even told me he was proud of me for finally drawing a line. But I still feel this pressure from everyone to let it go, to pretend it never happened, to protect the image of a perfect family that never existed. So, Reddit, you tell me, am I the a-hole for refusing to attend my sister's wedding and ultimately causing it to fall apart over something that happened 5 years ago?